Very Reverend Father Paul Echandi, Very Reverend Mother General Sankta, Very Reverend Father Rector Thomas Aikara, and all the beloved friends here. India's true treasure is said to be lying in her mines of spirituality. Surah Church has proved herself her living capacity in this field. Catholic Church has an ideal gallery and galaxy of saints with a mosaic of different spiritual orientations. Each saint has his or her own characteristic uniqueness and traits, distinguishing each one from others and revealing the nearness to God. Pope Benedict says, the saint is the person who is so fascinated by the beauty of God. Saint Chavara was instrumental in founding the first indigenous religious congregation of our country. He was a versatile genius who gave remarkable leadership in the fields of religious life, education, printing, language studies, literature, women empowerment, etc. At the same time, he never projected himself. Saint Chavara could be considered as the godfather of print journalism in Kerala. The printing press he founded at Mananam after much painstaking first-hand research eventually led to the publication of the first Malayalam daily. This was indeed a giant leap. We have here the beginnings of the dissemination and the democratization of knowledge. Chavara was a polyglot. The activities of Chavara are something like a cardiography of the national and religious struggle of our country of that time. The first half of the 19th century witnessed a raging debate as to the best education policy for India. The two rival factions in this intellectual fray were the Anglicists and the Orientalists. The Orientalists were in favor of valorizing the traditional language, culture, and religion of India. According to them, the age-old wisdom of our land could still be profitably utilized after due adaptations. By founding a Sanskrit school in 1846 for the education of Malabar Catholics, Saint Chavara proved himself to be a first-rate Orientalist of the country. Though the school was meant to further the educational opportunities of Syrian Catholics, its portals were wide open for all students, irrespective of caste, creed, or gender. The choice of Sanskrit as the language of instruction was something revolutionary for the Christians. Admitting Dalit students to the school was revolutionary for the society as well. Saint Chavara was at once a Malpan, a religious leader, and a public intellectual. He encouraged the Christians to apply themselves seriously to the study of Syriac language, which was by then largely neglected. He insisted that each parish as a church, a school, and if possible, a dispensary also. He visualized houses with prayer rooms and study rooms. The social and religious reformer in Saint Chavara kindled two revolutions, one of holiness and another of education. Chavara Kuriakos was really a promoter of nation building. A nation is built on God's values and principles. It is the law of justice that keeps a nation steady and strong. Chavara was a champion of this. He was a transforming fire. He purified the society to a great extent. He was the conscience of the people of that time. He has rejuvenated the secular society of that time. He himself was a tradition that carries the past into the present and towards the future. Chavara always kept a living philosophy of molding the society by purifying the people from injustice. The people enjoyed a rather easy oxygenation of the gospel values through his activities. There are many values in him that could be proudly transmitted to the posterity. Actually, Chavara became a nation builder through the gospel values and prayers. He was a genius who respected the national values of the country. Nation building is not a finished product. It is an ongoing process. Dr. Ambedkar says, we can only attempt to become a nation in the making. According to Christian tradition, every saint undertakes a twofold journey. First, a journey in search of the mystery of Christ. Second, a journey in search of the mystery of the church. It is through these endeavors that we delve into the deeper levels of the reality that is human. This is how we enter with hope into the fundamental principles of afterlife and eternity. It was a part of their research for Christ and his church that Saint Chavara and Saint Eurasia rooted themselves firmly in the fertile soil of religious life. Pope Francis says, if the church loses women, she risks becoming sterile. The twin canonization is a fitting recognition of the efficacious ministry of the Indian Carmelites to the universal church. The words of Pope Francis are inspiring. The church is carried forward by saints. They really bear witness to Christ. Saint Eurasia is actually the icon of womanhood and sainthood. She is actually the icon of prayer. She has much to do in this contemporary world. Because of the limitation of the time, I try to wind up. Saint Chavara gives a message. When we face challenges together, then we are strong. Then we discover resources we do not know we had. Jesus did not call the apostles to live in isolation. He called them to form a group, a community. This enabled Chavara to start religious congregations. Gopalakrishna Gandhi wrote on Rajagopalachari in the following way, in version. He was a man of God, religious-minded, pious, placing his talents and time very consciously on the altar of reverential belief. He wrote, that means he has written on scripture as a sacrament, on politics as a duty, on social issues as an obligation. He wrote on Gandhi as Mark, Matthew, Luke, John and Paul wrote on the Prince of Nazareth, Jesus Christ. In a similar way, whatever Saint Chavara has written is golden. Thank you very much.